So it's clear by now that Bernie Sanders is the undisputed frontrunner for the 2020 Democratic nomination. But you're still hearing a lot of narratives about how picking Bernie Sanders would be a mistake because he can't defeat Donald Trump. And even though Bernie Sanders often polls strongest against Trump in numerous national polls, the narrative is that Bernie Sanders won't be able to win in the vital swing states, that he'll run up the score in very liberal blue states, but he won't do well in those narrow states that are required to win a general election. Many of the states that Hillary Clinton lost in 2016. But a new round of polling shows that in many swing states, again, including some of the ones Hillary Clinton lost 4 years ago, Bernie Sanders is in an excellent position versus Trump and relative to many in the Democratic field. If you look at the broad numbers here, this shows you 5 swing states, and it shows that Bernie Sanders is either tied or winning in all of them according to the Real Clear Politics average, which averages out some of the recent polls. So some of the polls are better for Bernie, some of them not as good, but on average, he's winning Michigan by 5 points. He's winning Ohio by 3. He's winning Minnesota by 9. Wisconsin, he's in a dead heat. And Pennsylvania, he's winning by 3. This is very, very good news. Besides Minnesota here, Hillary Clinton lost all of these states. And if Bernie Sanders can pick them all up, that's very, very positive signs for his ability to win the Electoral College. Bernie might struggle in Florida. Florida might be a hard pickup for Bernie, but a lot of Democrats are uncompetitive in Ohio. But Bernie Sanders here, showing a 2.5 point lead in Ohio, really does show that he can cobble together enough states, enough Electoral College votes, in addition to the popular vote, to defeat Donald Trump. And these are some of the very same Midwestern Rust Belt states that Hillary Clinton couldn't quite win 4 years ago. But Bernie, in a lot of these states in the primaries 4 years ago, did very well, demonstrating that Bernie might be the ideal type of Democrat to flip a lot of Obama 2008 and Obama 2012 voters back to the Democrats in these states. If Bernie Sanders can win these ones right here, and he can hold a lot of what was won 4 years ago, Bernie Sanders is well on his way to being president. And according to a couple polls that just came out today, in some of these states, it's only Bernie that's competitive with Trump. It's only Bernie that beats Trump. And that's important to realize, because with states like Minnesota, Bernie Sanders may well not be the only one that can win it. But you need to win multiple of these states. The way the Electoral College map works for the Democrats is that unless you win Florida, you basically need to do very well in all of these sorts of states, unless you pick up a shock victory in Texas or something like that, which I won't rule out with Bernie, but which would require probably a little bit of luck. But if you look at this poll today from Muhlenberg College, you'll see that Bernie Sanders is the only one beating Trump in Pennsylvania right now. In this poll, Trump beats Buttigieg by 1, he beats Klobuchar by 1, Biden and Warren tie Trump, but Bernie beats him by 3. That's a pretty significant difference. Everyone else is losing or tying, and you're up by 3 in one of the most crucial swing states. And that poll was only done about a week ago, so it really is fairly current data. It's important to see. And if you look at this other poll here by Marquette Law School, again, you'll see that Bernie Sanders is the only one to defeat Donald Trump in Wisconsin. Trump beats Warren by 3 in Wisconsin. Trump ties Klobuchar in Wisconsin. Trump beats Bloomberg by 1 in Wisconsin. Trump ties Buttigieg in Wisconsin. Trump ties Biden in Wisconsin. Again, Bernie Sanders is the only one to win this particular state against Donald Trump. And this poll is even more recent than the Pennsylvania poll, with even more respondents giving this data a bit more confidence. And this is the state right here where Bernie on average is only tied with Trump. It's the one state where Bernie isn't beating Trump in this list of 5 key Midwestern swing states. And Bernie Sanders having a lead here could indicate that he's on an upward trend. So I want you to share this sort of data with people when you're talking about Bernie, because a lot of people who are talking about Bernie with hesitancy aren't doing it because they don't like Bernie. They're not doing it because they're cynical. A lot of people have heard these narratives from the Biden camp and the Buttigieg camp and all the other camps. They've heard it from MSNBC and CNN. They've heard it from the Washington Post. And when you're just, deluged every day, every hour, every week about how Bernie Sanders can't win, and here's supposedly 15 reasons why, then some of those are going to absorb into that person's mindset. And when they're doubting Bernie, it's important that we approach them fair-mindedly and with patience and being kind and being welcoming and saying, well, actually, there's some data that might prove that narrative wrong. So, for instance, for a long time, people said Bernie had no support among people of color. But a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters, like myself and like many of my viewers, went around and we shared polls saying, hey, Bernie Sanders is doing really well with Latino and Latina voters especially. But he was doing okay with black voters too at the time. And I think that encouraged a lot of people, gave people a second look. And now the narrative about Bernie still struggling with African American voters exists, but there's new polling from various firms now showing Bernie leading Joe Biden among national support for black voters. And I think that's really crucial. When we share this data, when we give people a bit of information to counter the narratives from the neoliberal campaigns and from the mainstream media, we give them the tools to do their own critical thinking. We don't have to convince them right here, right now, that they need to vote for Bernie, but we have to get rid of the excuses in their mind about why Bernie can't win. We need to let them know about the national approval rating, that Bernie's got the highest. We need to let them know that Bernie Sanders beats Trump in the national polling. We need to let people know that Bernie's competitive, even in some purple and red states that the Democrats didn't really have a chance of winning 4 years ago. And now, with this data, we have to tell people that there are specific polls from states like Pennsylvania and Wisconsin showing Bernie beating Trump and the only one beating Trump. And we have a bunch of polls and a bunch of polling averages showing that Bernie Sanders is more than competitive in the very crucial swing states that Hillary Clinton lost 4 years ago. If we get this information to the people, we can encourage them to go where their heart is, to vote with their interests and not vote out of fear, and support Bernie Sanders so he can win the nomination, defeat Donald Trump, and build a just society.